The Zorvani had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They were tall creatures, almost 9 feet in height, with hard shells like insects and eyes that saw everything as either useful or worthless. In their long history, they had crushed 47 species. Some they enslaved. Others they simply erased from existence. The galaxy feared them, and the Zorvani liked it that way. When humanity first reached the stars, the Zorvani barely noticed. These small, soft creatures from a tiny blue planet were nothing special. They had no great weapons, no ancient history, no impressive technology. They were like children stumbling into a room full of giants. Daniel Porter was Earth's first ambassador to the Zorvani Dominion. He was a patient man with gray hair and kind eyes. For 3 years, he traveled to the Zorvani homeworld. He sat in waiting rooms for weeks at a time. He smiled when they insulted him. He bowed when they demanded it. All he wanted was a simple trade agreement, a small step toward peace between species. The Zorvani High Council found him amusing. They would sometimes let him speak for a few minutes before dismissing him like a pet that had learned a new trick. Ambassador Porter never lost his temper. He believed that patience and kindness would eventually win. He was wrong. Vega 3rd was a beautiful world. 40 years ago, the first human colonists had landed there. They found a planet with blue oceans, green forests, and purple mountains that touched pink clouds at sunset. It was far from Earth, at the very edge of Zorvani space, but the Dominion had shown no interest in it. So humans built their homes there. 9 million people lived on Vega 3. There were cities with tall buildings and small towns with farms. There were schools where children learned about Earth's history and hospitals where doctors healed the sick. There were families who had lived there for 3 generations, people who had never seen Earth but still called themselves human. Katie Morgan was a journalist. She worked on an observation platform that floated high above Vega 3rd. Her job was to report news back to Earth, stories about the colony's growth and the daily lives of its people. She was 32 years old, with short brown hair and a camera that she carried everywhere. On the morning of what would become the worst day in human history, Katie was eating breakfast and looking down at the planet below. The clouds were especially beautiful that day. She remembered thinking that she should take some pictures to send to her mother back on Earth. Then the Zorvani ships appeared. There were hundreds of them, huge and dark, blocking out the stars like a swarm of metal insects. Katie grabbed her camera and started recording. Her hands were shaking, but she did not stop. Admiral Keth Voren commanded the Zorvani 3rd Fleet. He was old, even by Zorvani standards, with a cracked shell and cold, empty eyes. He had destroyed 11 worlds in his career. Vega 3 would be his 12th. The Zorvani had recently discovered valuable minerals on a moon near Vega 3. The human colony was too close. Instead of asking the humans to move, instead of negotiating or trading, Admiral Keth Voren decided to send a message to the entire galaxy. He ordered his fleet to broadcast the attack on every channel. Every species with a receiver would watch what happened to those who lived too close to Zorvani interests. The first bombs fell on New Seattle, the largest city on Vega the 3rd. Katie watched through her camera as buildings turned to fire and dust. She could see tiny figures running in the streets below, people trying to escape. But there was nowhere to go. The Zorvani ships moved systematically across the planet. They destroyed the cities first, then the towns, then the farms. They bombed the hospitals and the schools. They shot down the evacuation ships that tried to flee. They were thorough and patient, like farmers clearing a field of weeds. Katie broadcast everything. Her voice was steady even as tears ran down her face. She described what she saw because she knew the galaxy was watching. She named the cities as they burned. She counted the evacuation ships as they exploded. She wanted everyone to remember, In the governor's mansion in New Seattle, Governor Ben Howard tried to send a final message to Earth. He was an older man who had spent his whole life on Vega 3. His wife had died there. His children had been born there. Now he watched through his window as his world ended. His last transmission was simple. "Tell Earth we did not surrender. Tell them we died standing. Tell them to remember us." The signal cut off when a Zorvani bomb hit the mansion. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it was over, Vega 3 was silent. The cities were ash. The forests were burning. The oceans were boiling where the bombs had fallen. 9 million human beings were dead, and their killers had made sure the whole galaxy watched it happen. Katie Morgan was the only human who survived. The Zorvani did not bother to destroy the observation platform. Perhaps they forgot about it. Perhaps they wanted a witness. She sat alone in the dark station, her camera still recording, and she spoke to anyone who might be listening. "My name is Katie Morgan. I am a journalist from Earth. I have just watched the Zorvani Dominion murder 9 million of my people. They did not ask us to leave. They did not warn us. They killed children in their schools and patients in their hospitals. They broadcast it for everyone to see because they wanted the galaxy to be afraid." She paused, wiping her eyes. "I do not know what Earth will do. I do not know if there is anything Earth can do. The Zorvani are powerful and we are small, but I know this. We will remember. Every name, every face, every child who never grew up. We will remember all of them." Her broadcast reached Earth 17 minutes after the attack ended. It was morning in New York, afternoon in London, evening in Tokyo. People stopped in the streets. They gathered around screens in homes and offices and public squares. They watched the recordings that Katie had sent, the images of cities burning and ships exploding and a world dying. For a long moment, humanity was silent. 9 million dead, an entire world destroyed. And the Zorvani had done it with a smile, confident that these weak little humans would do nothing. The galaxy expected humanity to submit. Every other species had submitted. The Zorvani were too powerful to fight, but on that terrible day, as Earth watched the death of Vega the Third, something changed. Something broke inside the human spirit, and something new took its place. That night, every nation on Earth made the same decision. There would be no surrender. There would be no forgetting. And then Earth went quiet. 18 months passed, and humanity said nothing. The Zorvani High Council was pleased. They had expected crying and begging, perhaps some angry words, but in the end, the humans had done what every species did. They had accepted their place. Admiral Keth Voran received medals for his work at Vega 3. He gave speeches about the importance of showing strength. Young Zorvani officers studied his attack as an example of perfect military planning. The Admiral was proud of what he had done. Other species in the galaxy whispered among themselves. They felt sorry for the humans, but they were also relieved. Better humanity than them. Better to stay quiet and hope the Zorvani never looked in their direction. But deep inside Earth's solar system, far from any Zorvani sensors, something was happening that no one in the galaxy could have predicted. General Nathan Cole stood in an underground bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. He was 60 years old, with white hair cut short and a face lined from years of difficult decisions. Before Vega 3, he had been planning to retire. Now retirement seemed like a word from another life. On the wall in front of him was a map of human space. Red marks showed the colonies that still survived. Blue marks showed the shipyards working day and night. Green marks showed the research stations where scientists were doing impossible things. "How long until the fleet is ready?" he asked. Colonel Diana Webb stood beside him. She was younger, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a tablet in her hands. 14 months if we keep this pace, maybe 12 if the Luna team finishes early. Nathan nodded slowly. 12 months felt like forever, but humanity had learned patience. They would wait until they were ready. On the moon, in a research station hidden inside a crater, Dr. Lisa Brennan was working on a problem that had puzzled species for thousands of years. The Zorvani controlled the stars because they controlled fold space technology. Their ships could bend space and travel between systems in hours instead of years. They had kept this technology secret for 12,000 years, destroying anyone who came close to discovering it. Lisa was 38 years old, with messy red hair and eyes that had dark circles from too many sleepless nights. Before Vega 3rd, she had been a professor at a university, teaching physics to students who mostly wanted easy grades. Now she led a team of 300 scientists, and failure was not an option. 3 months after the massacre, her team made a breakthrough. They did not just copy the Zorvani fold drive, they improved it. The Zorvani need 20 minutes to calculate a full-space jump, Lisa explained to General Cole during a video conference. Our version needs 30 seconds. They can only jump between systems. We can jump within a system, from one side of a battle to another. Nathan felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. How soon can we put this in ships? He asked. Lisa smiled for the first time since Vega 3rd. The engineers are already building the first prototypes. Commander Ryan Torres was in charge of building the fleet. He worked in a shipyard hidden inside an asteroid, where thousands of workers assembled vessels that looked nothing like anything humanity had built before. These ships were smaller than Zorvani warships, but faster, more agile, and designed for one purpose: war. Ryan was 45, a former Navy captain who had lost his younger brother on Vega 3rd. His brother had been a teacher at a school in New Seattle. Ryan tried not to think about how he died. He focused on the work instead. Every day, new ships joined the fleet. Every day, pilots trained in simulators that recreated Zorvani combat tactics. Every day, humanity grew stronger. But ships and weapons were not enough. Humanity needed to know their enemy. Katie Morgan had changed since Vega threw. The journalist who had cried while broadcasting the massacre was gone. In her place was something harder, colder. She now led Earth's intelligence network, a web of spies and informants that stretched across the galaxy. From her office on Earth, Katie studied everything about the Zorvani. She learned their fleet movements, their supply lines, their political divisions. She found species who hated the Dominion and recruited them as informants. She discovered secrets that the Zorvani had kept hidden for centuries. Their empire is weaker than it looks, she reported to General Cole. They have made too many enemies. The Kethrani, the Valori, the Drenathi, dozens of others. They all hate the Zorvani. They are just too afraid to act. Nathan considered this carefully. Can we reach out to them? Katie nodded. Already working on it. Ambassador Daniel Porter had not given up on diplomacy, but now his diplomacy had a different purpose. While the Zorvani celebrated their victory, Daniel quietly traveled to the worlds of their victims. He visited the Kethrani, whose home world had been stripped of its resources and left barren. He met with the Valori, whose people had been enslaved for generations. He spoke to the Drenathi, who had lost 3 worlds in the past 100 years. His message was simple. Alone, we are weak. Together, we might have a chance. Most were too scared to answer. The Zorvani had eyes everywhere. But some listened, some remembered what they had lost, and some began to hope. Back on Earth, ordinary people did their part. Factories that had once made cars now made weapons. Scientists who had studied medicine now developed better armor. Teachers taught children about Vega through so they would never forget. Artists made songs and paintings to keep the anger alive. Everyone worked. Everyone sacrificed. Everyone waited. 18 months after Vega 3, General Nathan Cole received a message from Dr. Lisa Brennan. "The fleet is ready." He received another message from Commander Ryan Torres. 300 ships fully armed and crewed. He received a third message from Katie Morgan. "The Zorvani have no idea. They think we are broken." Nathan Cole sat alone in his office that night. He thought about the 9 million dead. He thought about the children in their schools and the patients in their hospitals. He thought about what humanity was about to do. War was coming, a war that would shake the galaxy. And humanity was ready. The next morning, General Cole gave the order that every human had been waiting for. Begin Operation Silent Thunder. Earth's silence was about to end. Admiral Kethavorin was having a good day. He stood on a balcony in the capital city of Thex Prime, watching fireworks paint the night sky in colors of victory. Today was the anniversary of his greatest triumph. 1 year since he had cleansed Vega 3 of human pests. Below him, thousands of Zorvani celebrated in the streets. Officers in their dress uniforms drank expensive wines. Their families watched the fireworks and cheered. Music played from speakers on every corner. It was a perfect night. Thex Prime was the heart of Zorvani military power. The planet held the largest shipyards in the Dominion, training facilities for their elite warriors, and homes for the families of their most important officers. It was heavily defended, surrounded by defense platforms and patrol fleets. No enemy had ever come close to threatening it. Admiral Kethavorin raised his glass to toast another year of Zorvani supremacy. He never finished the drink. The sky above Thex Prime tore open. 300 human warships emerged from fold space simultaneously. They appeared in perfect formation, surrounding the planet like a net of steel and fire. One moment the sky was empty. The next moment, it was filled with death. Captain Derek Shaw commanded the lead ship, the UES Retribution. He was young for a captain, only 34, with dark skin and calm brown eyes that showed no emotion. His parents had emigrated to Vega 3 when he was a child. They had died there. His 2 sisters had died there. His childhood friends had died there. Derek had spent 18 months preparing for this moment. Now that it was here, he felt strangely peaceful. "All ships, this is Retribution," he said into his communicator. His voice was steady and clear. "Weapons free. Primary targets are military installations, shipyards, and defense platforms. Avoid civilian areas. We are not them. But show them what humans can do when they are angry." The battle began. Zorvani defense platforms opened fire, but the human ships moved in ways that should have been impossible. They jumped through fold space within the system itself, disappearing from one position and appearing in another before Zorvani gunners could adjust their aim. In seconds, the first defense platform exploded into fragments. Admiral Kethavorin dropped his glass and ran for the command center. His celebration had become a nightmare. Alarms screamed from every direction. Officers shouted into communicators, trying to organize a defense. But everything was happening too fast. "How is this possible?" the Admiral demanded. "They cannot jump within a system. No one can do that." His aide had no answer. The Zorvani had believed for 12,000 years that they alone understood fold space technology. They had been wrong. In orbit above Thex Prime, the human fleet tore through the Zorvani defenders like wolves through sheep. The great shipyards, where Dominion warships were built, erupted in flames. Training facilities that had produced Zorvani warriors for centuries were reduced to rubble. Fuel depots exploded in chains of fire that could be seen from the planet's surface. Captain Derek Shaw guided the Retribution through the chaos with precise, deadly efficiency. His ship destroyed 3 patrol cruisers in as many minutes. When a Zorvani battleship twice his size tried to block his path, he simply jumped behind it and fired into its engines. Commander Karen Black led the second wave of the attack. She was older than Derek, a veteran of Earth's small defensive navy, and she had trained hard for this day. Her squadron focused on communications arrays and sensor stations, blinding the Zorvani and cutting them off from reinforcements. "Comm arrays destroyed," she reported. "They cannot call for help." "Good," Derek replied. "Continue to secondary targets." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, every Zorvani military installation on or around Thex Prime was destroyed. The great shipyards were burning debris. The patrol fleets were scattered wreckage floating in space. The defense platforms were silent and dark. But the city still stood. The homes and schools and hospitals were untouched. The civilian population was alive. Admiral Keth Voren stood in the ruins of his command center, staring at screens that showed only static. Around him, officers were crying or praying or simply sitting in shock. Their world had just ended, and they did not understand how. Then a new signal broke through the static. Every screen on Thex Prime flickered to life, showing the same image. Captain Derek Shaw, standing on the bridge of the Retribution. "My name is Captain Derek Shaw of the United Earth Navy," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "1 year ago, your Admiral Keth Voren murdered 9 million humans on Vega 3. He destroyed our cities, our schools, our hospitals. He killed children in their classrooms and patients in their beds. And he broadcast it for the galaxy to see." Derek paused, letting his words sink in. "Today we have returned the favor. Your military installations are gone. Your shipyards are ash. Your patrol fleets are debris, but your cities are intact. Your families are alive. Your children are safe." The Admiral watched the screen with hatred in his eyes. This small, soft human had humiliated him. He had destroyed everything the Admiral had built. But why had he spared the civilians? Derek continued as if he could hear the question. "We are not you," he said. "We do not murder children. We do not burn hospitals. We do not slaughter innocent people to make a point. That is not who humanity is. But make no mistake, what you did to Vega 3 will not go unanswered. This is only the beginning." The broadcast ended. The screens went dark. On planets across the galaxy, other species watched recordings of the attack. They saw the mighty Zorvani humiliated. They saw human ships performing maneuvers that the Dominion had claimed were impossible. And they saw something that no one expected. They saw mercy. The humans had won a great victory, but they had chosen not to become monsters. They had proven themselves better than their enemy. On a dozen worlds, oppressed species began to whisper. If humanity could hurt the Zorvani this badly, perhaps the Dominion was not invincible after all. Perhaps it was time to stop being afraid. In his ruined command center, Admiral Keth Voren swore revenge. The High Council would send every fleet in the Dominion to destroy Earth. They would wipe out every human colony. They would make Vega 3 look like mercy. But as he made his vows, the Admiral did not know that the galaxy was already changing. The humans had struck first, but they were not planning to strike alone. High Counselor Zeth Marek was the oldest and most powerful Zorvani alive. He had ruled the Dominion for 300 years. He had ordered the destruction of worlds and the enslavement of entire species. Nothing in the galaxy frightened him. Until now. He sat in his throne room, surrounded by advisors who were too scared to speak. The recordings from Thex Prime played on the walls around him, showing human ships dancing through Zorvani defenses like they were nothing. The great shipyards burned. The mighty patrol fleets died. "How many ships do the humans have?" the High Counselor demanded. "Our intelligence suggests 300. An advisor answered nervously. 300 ships destroyed our strongest military base." Zethmarek's voice was cold. "How is this possible?" No one had an answer. The High Counselor made his decision. There would be no negotiation. There would be no mercy. Humanity had embarrassed the Dominion in front of the entire galaxy. They would pay with their extinction. "Mobilize everything," he ordered. "Every fleet, every ship, every warrior. We go to Earth. We burn their planet. We kill every human in the galaxy. Let no one forget what happens to those who challenge the Zorvani." 12 battle fleets began moving toward human space. Each fleet was large enough to destroy a solar system. Together, they were the greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Across the galaxy, other species watched in fear. Surely humanity was doomed. Not even their miracle technology could save them from this. But Ambassador Daniel Porter had been busy during those 18 months of silence. He had visited worlds that the Zorvani had hurt. He had spoken to leaders who had lost everything. He had planted seeds of hope, and now those seeds were ready to grow. On the Kathrani homeworld, Admiral Vornash watched the Zorvani fleets mobilize on his screen. He was old for a Kathrani, with gray scales and tired eyes. His people had once been powerful. Then the Zorvani had come. They had taken everything, the minerals, the water, the pride. The Kathrani had nothing left except their hatred. His communicator buzzed, a message from Earth. "Now," it said simply. Admiral Vornash made the hardest decision of his life. He opened a channel to every Kathrani ship hidden in the asteroid fields. "All vessels set course for Sol System. We fight with the humans." On the Valori homeworld, Fleet Commander Sayla received the same message. She was young for a commander, with purple skin and silver eyes. Her grandmother had been a slave on a Zorvani mining colony. Her mother had escaped when she was pregnant with Sayla. The stories of that escape still gave Sayla nightmares. "All Valori ships, prepare for combat," she ordered. "Today we remember what they took from us." The Dranathi joined. They had lost 3 worlds to the Zorvani in the last century. The Morvani joined. Their species had been reduced to a single space station after the Dominion destroyed their planet. The Talari joined. The Vorthan joined. The Nephilim joined. 17 species answered humanity's call. 2,000 ships from across the galaxy began moving toward Sol. When the Zorvani fleets entered human space, they expected to find a small force of desperate defenders. Instead, they found an armada. The Battle of Sol began on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. General Nathan Cole watched from Earth Command as the Zorvani fleets emerged from fold space at the edge of the solar system. For a moment, his heart sank. There were so many of them. Thousands of ships, each one massive and deadly. Then his sensors showed the coalition fleet moving to intercept. Commander Ryan Torres led the human contingent. His ship, the UES Vengeance, took position at the center of the formation. Beside him flew Kathrani cruisers with their curved hulls and powerful weapons. Valori destroyers with their sleek designs darted through the formation. Ships from a dozen other species filled the gaps. "This is Commander Torres to all coalition forces," Ryan said. "Today we fight not as separate species, but as one. We fight for Vega 3. We fight for the Kathrani homeworld. We fight for every world the Zorvani have destroyed. Show them that the galaxy is no longer afraid." The Zorvani commanders laughed when they saw the coalition, a collection of weaklings and slaves, they thought. This would be easy. They were wrong. Dr. Lisa Brennan had shared her fold drive technology with every coalition species. Now Valori ships jumped across the battlefield with the same impossible speed as human vessels. Kethrani cruisers appeared behind Zorvani lines and struck at their weak points. The coordinated attacks hit the Dominion from every direction at once. The battle lasted 6 days. On the first day, the Zorvani lost 300 ships. They had never lost so many in such a short time. Their commanders could not understand how their enemies moved so fast, how they coordinated so perfectly, how they fought with such desperate courage. On the third day, Admiral Vornash led a Kethrani squadron in a suicide charge that destroyed an entire Zorvani fleet command ship. He died with a smile on his old face, knowing that he had hurt the ones who had hurt his people. On the 5th day, the Zorvani lines began to break. Ships that had never retreated started running. Warriors who had believed themselves invincible started to panic. On the 6th day, Commander Ryan Torres led a strike team to High Counselor Zeth Marek's flagship. Katie Morgan broadcast the attack across the galaxy, just as she had broadcast the massacre of Vega Thur. The flagship was huge, bigger than some space stations, but human Marines fought their way through its corridors with fierce determination. They lost many good soldiers, but they did not stop. When they reached the throne room, High Counselor Zeth Marek was waiting. He stood tall and proud, refusing to show fear, even as human weapons pointed at his head. Specialist Amy Chen stepped forward. She was 23 years old, small and quiet. Not the kind of person you would expect to change history. Her grandparents had died on Vega Thru. Her parents still cried every night for the people they had lost. She pointed her weapon at the most powerful being in the galaxy. Zeth Marek stared at her with contempt. "Go ahead, little human. Kill me. It will not save your species." Amy looked at him for a long moment. Then she lowered her weapon. "Stand up," she said quietly. "You are under arrest. You will be tried for your crimes, with evidence and witnesses. That is how humans do justice." The High Counselor's face showed something it had never shown before. Confusion. He had expected death. He had expected revenge. He had not expected this. Katie Morgan's camera captured every moment. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched as humanity chose law over vengeance, justice over murder. The Battle of Saul was over. The Zorvani Dominion was broken. But humanity's greatest victory was still to come. The trial of High Counselor Zeth Marek lasted 3 months. It was held on Earth, in a great hall that had been built just for this purpose. Representatives from every species in the galaxy came to watch. Cameras broadcast every moment to billions of viewers across the stars. The evidence was overwhelming. Recordings of massacres. Orders signed by the High Counselor himself. Survivors who told their stories with tears streaming down their faces. For 12,000 years, the Zorvani had believed they were above judgment. Now the galaxy saw the truth of what they had done. When the verdict came, there was no surprise. Guilty. Guilty of genocide. Guilty of slavery. Guilty of crimes that had no names because no one had ever tried to punish them before. But what happened next shocked everyone. Humanity did not execute the High Counselor. They did not torture him. They did not make him suffer the way his victims had suffered. Instead, they sent him to a prison on a cold moon at the edge of the solar system, where he would spend the rest of his long life in a small cell with nothing but his memories. Death would be too easy, General Nathan Cole explained when reporters asked. Let him live. Let him think about what he did. Let him know that the galaxy moved on without him. Some people were angry. They wanted blood. They wanted revenge. The families of Vega Thur had lost everything, and many of them wanted the Zorvani to lose everything too. But Ambassador Daniel Porter spent months talking to these families, listening to their pain, helping them understand that becoming monsters would not bring back the dead. If we burn their worlds, we become them, he said in a speech that was played on every screen on Earth. If we kill their children, we are no better than the ones who killed ours. We can choose revenge, or we can choose to be something new, something the galaxy has never seen. It was not an easy choice. Many people disagreed, but in the end, humanity chose to build rather than destroy. The Treaty of Earth was signed 1 year after the Battle of Sol. Every species that had fought in the coalition sent representatives. Even the Zorvani sent delegates, though they sat in silence with their heads bowed in shame. The treaty created something new, the Galactic Council. Every species would have equal representation. Every species would have a voice. No one would be a master, and no one would be a slave. The Zorvani had ruled for 12,000 years. Now they had 2 seats on the council, the same as everyone else. It was the greatest humiliation in their history, and it was exactly what they deserved. Dr. Lisa Brennan received awards from a dozen species for her work on the fold drive technology. She could have kept it secret. She could have made humanity the new masters of the galaxy. Instead, she shared it freely with everyone. Knowledge belongs to all beings, she said when asked why. If we hoard it, we become what we fought against. She returned to her research, but now she worked on technologies that would help everyone. Better medical equipment, cleaner energy, faster communication. Scientists from 100 species came to work with her, and together they achieved things that none of them could have done alone. Commander Ryan Torres became the first human to lead the coalition fleet. It was a peacekeeping force now, answering to the Council rather than any single species. Ryan had lost his brother on Vega through, and for a long time, all he wanted was to hurt the ones who had hurt him. But command taught him a different lesson. Anger can start a war, he told his officers on the first day of his new command. But it cannot build a peace. We are soldiers, yes, but our job now is to protect, not to destroy. Never forget the difference. Katie Morgan wrote a book about the 18 months of silence. She described the planning, the sacrifice, the fear, and the hope. She told the stories of people who had worked in secret factories and scientists who had slept in their laboratories. She honored the soldiers who had died in the battle and the families who had lost everything on Vega III. The book became required reading in schools across 40 worlds. Children who had never heard of Earth learned about what humanity had done and how they had done it. 1 year after the treaty, a memorial was unveiled on Vega III. The planet was still scarred from the attack. Nothing would grow there for centuries. But humanity had returned to the dead world to build something permanent. 9 million names were carved into black stone that stretched for miles across the burned landscape. Every person who had died was remembered: the children and the elderly, the teachers and the doctors, the farmers and the artists. Each name was a promise that they would never be forgotten. Representatives from every species in the council attended the ceremony. Even some Zorvani came, though they stood apart from the others, not sure if they were welcome. Ambassador Daniel Porter delivered the dedication speech. He was older now, his hair completely white, his face lined with years of grief and work, but his voice was still strong. "We did not seek this war," he began. "We did not want vengeance. We wanted our children to grow up under alien skies, to wonder at the stars, and to believe that the universe could be kind." He paused, looking out at the endless rows of names carved in stone. 9 million of our people died because another species thought us weak. They were wrong. But our strength was never in our weapons or our technology. Our strength was in our refusal to become what we fought against. He gestured to the representatives gathered around him. Humans and Kathrani, Velori and Drenathi, even the ashamed Zorvani standing at the edge of the crowd. Look at what we have built. Species that were enemies are now allies. Species that were slaves are now free. The galaxy is not perfect. It may never be perfect, but it is better than it was. And that is what the dead of Vega 3 would have wanted. Daniel Porter looked up at the sky, where new stars were visible now that the smoke had finally cleared. This memorial stands not as a monument to revenge, but as a promise. We will remember, we will endure, and we will build something better than what came before. The galaxy had expected humanity to break. They had expected fear and submission, or hatred and destruction. They had expected humans to become monsters or victims. Instead, humanity became something new, something the universe had never seen before, a species that won a war and then chose to build peace. And that, more than any battle or weapon, is what redefined galactic history. The stars were watching. They had always been watching. And now they knew that the small, soft creatures from a tiny blue planet were not weak at all. They were human. And that made all the difference.